Uh, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Galla and his team who have taken this initiative to organize Evolve. Let me also welcome Mr. Hanif Qureshi and the team from Goshen, Mr. Kulkarni, many others who've joined on this occasion. My view is that this is a very unique initiative, bringing together experts, bringing together industry, academia, research, everyone together to engage in insightful discussions about what will shape the future of energy storage and mobility. And this, to my mind, is critical. This is critical because, we are all grappling with climate change issues. We are confronted with the fact that 2023 was the hottest year in history ever since global warming has been recorded. In last 173 years, this has been the hottest year. And at the current pace, global warming will reach 1.5 degrees centigrade. That was expected that it will reach 1.5 degrees centigrade between 2030 and 2052. But we've already breached that limit in 2023. And now breaching 2 degree and even 3 degrees centigrade of warming is a major risk. Even if we consider all the nationally determined contribution, all the NDCs that we have committed to at COP21 in Paris, we risk breaching 2 degrees centigrade. And many countries are not going to meet NDCs. And therefore, we are at the risk of breaching 3 degrees centigrade. Now, for India, it's very critical that, as an emerging market, that we become the first country in the world to urbanize and industrialize through a process of decarbonization. And this is important because without taking action, if we do not take action, then because of climate change, as much as 35% of India's GDP is at huge risk of losing 35% of our GDP by 2050. And inaction will come at a very, very high price. But it's also important to understand that 3/4 of India is still to be built by 2050 in terms of urbanization and industrialization, and almost 80% of India is still to be built by 2070. Just to give you an example, in America, you have about 1,200 cars per 1,000 passengers. 1,200 cars. So many people have more than 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars. In Europe, it is 900 cars per 1,000 people. But in India, it is just 22 cars per 1,000 people. As was said in the presentation, most people use 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers. And therefore, if we transit to new technologies, the level of destruction will be very low in India. Whereas if you transit to new technologies in United States or Europe, the level of destruction, of destroying old technologies will be very high. And therefore, it's very important that India transits to low carbon technologies. And in this, as we transit to new technologies and low carbon technologies, the power and transportation sectors will be very critical. And they are actually decarbonizing these sectors through the integration of renewable energy in the power sector, and the adoption of electric vehicles in the transportation sector is actually critical for India for low carbon technology transition. And at present the transition, and I think to my mind, and I'll talk about new technologies, but in the foreseeable future, the transition to low carbon technology relies heavily on the use of lithium-ion batteries, which are crucial for powering both electric vehicles and for storing renewable energy. Now, let me also say that quite often I hear the voices where some companies and some leaders start advocating immediate technologies like hybrid vehicles. Some start advocating blue and gray hydrogen or a gas-based economy. I am absolutely clear that India must leapfrog into emerging final technologies like electric vehicle, battery storage, green hydrogen, small modular reactors. These are the final cutting-edge technologies. And this will give India the first mover advantage and ensure that India becomes the focal point of all emerging technologies for India, and from India exporting to the rest of the world. And my belief is based on the following facts, that the level of disruption is very high. In 2004, it took the world a whole year to install a gigawatt of solar power capacity. In 2010, it took a month. In 2016, it took a week. And in 2023, there were single days which saw a gigawatt of installations worldwide. And over the course of 2024, analysts at Bloomberg expect to see close to 650 gigawatt of capacity installed. Imagine in 2004, it took the world a whole year to install a gigawatt of solar power capacity. And in 2024, we are seeing close to 650. That's up to 2 gigawatts a day. That is the extent of disruption. And according to International Solar Energy Society, actually solar power is on track to generate more electricity than all the world's nuclear plants in 2026, then it's wind turbines in 2027, then it's dams in 2028, it's gas-fired power plants in 2030, and it's coal-fired ones in 2032. So by 2032, solar energy will take over the world, and solar energy will become humankind's largest source of primary energy. Not electricity, but primary energy by 2024. And solar will be the major source of energy and power from grid to storage to charging infrastructure for transport. Now, my view is that India's demand for lithium-ion batteries will, and to my mind in the presentation, what was made before is an underestimation. And our demand will exceed 500 gigawatt between 2022 and 2030. And currently, a major of lithium-ion batteries are all met. We are importing worth about 2.5 billion from imports from largely China, but some from South Korea and Vietnam. And it is important to establish domestic cell manufacturing capabilities. I'm saying this because some of you should read this book called The Chip War by Chris Miller, where he talks about the domination of one country on chips and what kind of repercussions it will have for the world. And similarly, I feel that the same implications are for the world if we become totally dominated, if the world global economy gets dominated by one country. Now, if you look at most large-scale storage system in operation, they are all using lithium-ion technology presently. This is happening because lithium-ion battery technologies are providing a fast response time and a high cycle efficiency. Electricity and transport sectors are accounting for about 40% of India's total greenhouse gas emission, and therefore it's very critical. And we have already announced that we will achieve net zero by 2070. We've said that the goal of tripling the installed capacity of renewables is in G20. We've done this, announced that we'll triple our renewable energy. We today import about 160 billion worth of fossil fuel. To my mind, why it's necessary to do batteries manufacturing? Because batteries will cut the fossil fuel requirement. They will increase India's domestic energy independence. And because we need domestic energy independence, we cannot be dependent on one country. Now, as was mentioned in battery, we have the LFP, the lithium iron phosphate technology, which is high cycle efficiency. They are lighter and charge discharge time. And we have the NMC technology. But in 2023, that is last year, 42 gigawatts of battery storage was actually added worldwide, 42 gigawatt. In India, it was 0, and all of this was largely in the lithium ion technology. And if we look at the battery value chain, as was said, there are several stages. You have raw material processing, cell component production, battery cell, battery storage, you have electric vehicles, and then you have recycling and reuse. But the first three, the raw material processing, the cell component, and the battery cell packs, they account for 60% of value addition. And therefore, 60% of the value addition comes from raw material processing and cell component and battery cell. Now, there are many of you here. It's important to understand that actually China has created a monopoly in energy storage. And China wills, this monopoly has been created by sheer dynamism. And you know, whether we like it or not, Chinese companies have done an excellent work. You know, if you look at the total capacity, 2023 battery cell manufacturing capacity, that's about 1,300 gigawatt hour. And out of that, 77% is occupied by CATL, BYD, CLB, Goshen, Sunwoda, Farasis Energy, and China's 77%, Korea, Samsung, Tesla, etc., 6%, Volkswagen and Northvolt, 3%. So, I mean, what has been done, CATL is also manufacturing in Hungary, so they take another 3% there. So many of what has happened as a consequence of this, that China is expected to dominate the battery manufacturing capacity till 2030. They will reach close to about 6.5 terawatt hours as all the top manufacturing, at least 7 of the top manufacturing companies are all headquartered in China. Now, also important to understand that CATL and BYD are today accounting for 52% of the global battery cell manufacturing. Now, our import bill from batteries actually touched 2.1 billion in 2023, with over 85% imports from China. And while it has touched 2.1 billion now, with 85% from China, my view is that it'll keep accelerating at a very, very major pace, touching close to about 25 billion. So we are becoming very, very import dependent. And we've made ourselves totally import dependent. And as I had said, that it's very, very important from an energy independence viewpoint that we create the infrastructure across the supply chain. And India must gain more control over the battery supply chain. And given the complexity of the global supply chain, scaling up and stabilizing battery cell manufacturing is critical to India's decarbonizing path. Now, therefore, I think this initiative by Amar Raja in technical collaboration with Goshen, I greatly welcome it, and I wanted to want you to accelerate this pace, and many other companies who have joined here, and many of them, Reliance, Tata's, Log9, many companies are pushing for battery storage in India. there is a huge potential for battery storage because stationary storage will take off in a very big way. For wind and solar to continue to grow exponentially as it's been growing, we'll need stationary storage market. That will grow at a massive pace to my mind. The e-revolution, not merely two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, but it'll reach truck. The battery domino effect is having a major impact on the trucking sector worldwide. And there are a huge number of the total EV trucks, if you look at in sales in China, EU, US, they stand at close to about 8%, and that will get accelerated in a very big way. And the total long-term market size for light, medium, and heavy trucks will grow. Similarly, you will need batteries for all the hard-to-abate sectors. I mean, look at rail. Rail, India will become totally dependent on cleaner forms of energy, Indian railways, by 2030. Europe has signaled a shift from diesel to battery-powered rails. India shifted to battery-powered trains. And you will see a huge amount of new applications which have started. And you will see a huge circularity in batteries for remanufacturing, repurposing, recycling, which opens up massive opportunities. Breaking down the battery to retrieve valuable raw material by 2040. You will see recycled minerals will provide almost 12 to 13% of cobalt, 7% of nickel, and 5% of lithium and copper supply seeds. But let me say that while you need lithium, you need nickel, you need cobalt, all of them are available in the world. There's no short supply of them. And therefore, you need to do manufacturing in India. Now, what are the action areas for India, to my mind, to push this, to accelerate the pace of this, to make yourself energy independent? And first and foremost, I think we need to ensure that we had provided 18,100 crores for the production-linked incentive scheme. Some awards have been given, some more are being given. We need to bring size and scale on that. 30 gigawatt has been awarded. Another 10 gigawatts are getting awarded. So we need to push the implementation on ground very strongly. And I think Mr. Hanif Qureshi, who's here, is pushing for the quick and speedy implementation. So that will give you about 40 gigawatts close to that. 10 gigawatts has been allocated for stationary storage. So the Ministry of Power will ensure that we are able to go through that quickly. Secondly, we have allocated for 5 gigawatt for niche battery chemistry. And to my mind, as was said here, solid state batteries, and there are several potential new technologies, solid state, sodium ion, flow batteries, metal batteries. Some new startups are working on aluminum, many of them. So futuristic battery technologies which in due course will disrupt lithium-ion batteries. We need to bid out 5 gigawatt for niche future technologies, and we've already provided an allocation of 3,500 crore for this, and we should push this quickly. Thirdly, I think there is a need to establish supply chain linkages under the Mineral Security Partnership, which we have. We have a security partnership with 14 countries that aims to catalyze public and private investment in critical mineral supply chains. We need to push that so that rare earth minerals, whole range of them which are used in the battery value chain development, we can work in partnership with several other countries. So that's the government bit of it. And there's a critical role which the private sector has to play. And the private sector role is really developing mineral processing. That's number one. Minerals are refined into battery-grade chemicals and components to make anode and cathode electrodes, and they are placed into battery cells that store energy. Now, this Volta Foundation has estimated that the mineral processing market is expected to reach 62 billion by 2030. And therefore, this is a huge market for mineral processing, which is very critical. So many Western companies, many of them, like Albemarle, Lithium America, if you look at Novalith in France, have been investing in capacity expansion to shift supply chains away from one country-dominated place, and India is a unique opportunity to position itself as a very reliable supplier to the global markets for supply chain. And India should capitalize to find a niche role in the global market by building out mineral processing, which to my mind is very important. The second key role for the private sector is to develop the battery value chain and ecosystem in India, as Amar Raja is doing, and as Reliance, Tata's, many others are doing. The battery ecosystem provides huge opportunities in upstream, midstream, and downstream segments to act, because as access to equipment manufacturers, technical expertise, extensive vertical integration, economies of scale is very, very critical. And this is, to my mind, very important. And BYD and Tesla are great examples of vertical integration leading to lowering of prices. And therefore, I think it's important that you need an integrator, and companies like Amar Raja should take lead in this by forming joint ventures and acquisition of suppliers to establish long-term access to input material, allowing manufacturers to compete on costs. That is critical. And then, to my mind, there is a critical role, as I said, for the government. There's a critical role for the private sector, but there is a very, very important role for startups, to my mind, and that is important because you need to develop battery swapping networks. You need to enable battery as a service. You need research and development support. You need funds for R&D. In partnership, startups need to work in partnership with universities. Course curriculum need to be altered. You need to advance battery technologies. You need to improve range and overall performance. And thirdly, it's very, very important, like some Indian startups like Athro and Loham are doing, really push the boundaries for circular economy through reuse, repurposing, and recycling. And this is very important because battery recycling units will ensure critical minerals, recovery of end-life batteries, and push the circular economy. We need formalization of battery collection, aggregation, separation, transportation, and recycling. All this is very critical. So I have spoken about government, private sector, startups. There's also a very important role for the financial institutions, which need to do financing for battery value chain. They need to provide green financing for both, especially for cathode, active material, anode active materials, and separators. All that is very critical for India to take off. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm very clear in my mind that India needs energy independence. We can't be dependent on one country. We need to do local manufacturing. This will require a huge collaboration between government, private sector, startups, financial institutions. And we need to go for the ultimate final technology, not get caught up in intermediate technologies, much like we have technologically pole vaulted in digital public infrastructure, and where we have made a huge technological leapfrogging in fast payments, in providing, our young startups have done phenomenal work in several of these areas. We need innovation to reach the ultimate final technology, not hybrid technologies. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.